The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2768. The clerk will report the bill.
File number 2768, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to state government, ratifying labor contracts and compensation plans, the first engrossment.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, the author of the bill, Representative Lilly, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill ratifies the labor contracts and compensation plans for our state employees and the executive branch workers for Minnesota. These contracts and plans are for the FY 20 and 21 biennium and are effective retroactively to July 1st, 2019. Specific terms, there's some documents that have been provided to all members, and you can find those on your emails, but I'll just kind of give an overview at a higher level here. A 2.25 increase in salaries effective January 1st, 2019, and 2.5 in July of 1st of this year. And there's also been some negotiation in the insurance benefits. It's a major component, obviously, of labor contracts. And so most of the contract, these have not really changed, the healthcare, but the copay has changed, and some of the deductibles have changed. These are the state workers from all over the state, from one end to the other, from the VA up on Silver Bay, all the way to inspectors down in Worthington and Wilmer and all over our state, healthcare inspectors and food inspectors. Many of the nurses that are front-end workers in our VA homes, and epidemiologists, I can't say that word. But anyways, Indeed workers and insurance workers, many of the state workers around the state, these raises are reasonable. They've, on last year's budgets that we passed here at the legislature, these numbers were included in those budgets. Just so you know, wages make up about 7% of our total budget, which is about $488 billion, I guess, all told, but 7% of that is wages. And many of these workers, as you know, I mean, I'm sure you've been getting letters from some of the workers around the state, and the last couple of years, we've lost correction workers that were murdered or whatever out in the Stillwater area, but these are tough jobs. I heard a great story. I'm just going to give you a quick story about a 911 worker. Just the other day I was reading it, and he had saved a life. Some guy was driving up 35 going to Duluth, and he was driving at 100, and this 911 worker was able to talk the gentleman to the side of the road and to the safe to the end. And so we know that every day we all watch the governor and see his the reports, and we hear that through the papers and the newspapers. But we know that these our state workers are keeping us safe and healthy. They're our team, and these contracts were negotiated in good faith, and so they were. The world has changed a little bit, and I'm sure in our next budgets we'll see some changes related to these type of things. But again, these were negotiated in good faith, and they're part of our team, and they're out there doing good work. And I think we could be pretty proud of our state workers, and I think a good way to show that is by passing this bill today. I stand for questions.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 2768.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Representative Considine would like to be recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am happy to support this bill. Our public employees provide all the services that define our civilization, whether it's food inspection, wastewater, clean drinking water, firemen, policemen, the people that man the walls at the prisons. They are the people that provide our civilization. And in the current crisis, they have been the backbone to our response. Many of them are going into work on a regular basis in harm's way, sacrificing their health potentially to make sure that we are getting the services and the things that the state needs on a regular basis. Again, I am proud to support this bill. Thank you.
The member from Carlton, Representative Sundin.
Carlton County. Thank you, Chair Hartman. In Carlton County, we have a couple of facilities here that protect the public from some of the worst citizens that Minnesota has seen. And I'd like to share a couple stories about the people that serve in those in that prison setting in Moose Lake. There's Jim. He's a correction officer. He's been ill with COVID-19 for 3 weeks now. He contracted it at work. That's the assumption. And he's eager to go back to work as soon as he can because he views his job as a critical part of society. We have Karen. She's a nurse in that facility. She's actually living in her basement when she does go home just to protect her family from possible exposure from the COVID-19. We have Tom. Tom is a CO long time in Moose Lake Prison. He shared a story with me about shopping with his family one day in a department store, and he recognized one of the offenders that he had trouble with in the past, and he literally shoved his wife and family into the clothing racks to protect them from this guy. It turns out there was actually no threat at that point, but this guy had been dangerous before. These are some of the things that these people go through on a daily basis. And I don't know if there's any amount of money that can compensate them for the paranoia they might have to live with. There's Lee. Lee was a maintenance worker in the prison, and he recognized what was going on with the diseases and the exposure to some of these people, and he actually pulled the plug, quit his job, went back to construction. There's no amount of money that made it worth it for him to go to work and expose his family to these dangers. And a close personal friend of mine, Brad, he had 2 years to go to full retirement. He was exposed. He was laid off for 3 weeks. Good for Brad. He did not come down with COVID-19 virus, and I'm happy for him. But he realized his mortality, and he did not go back to work. So that was a labor drain for the state of Minnesota. We lost an experienced correction officers. There's no amount of money that would actually compensate a person for the risks that they go through from time to time in those settings. But this is a good start. These contracts are a good start. They're negotiated in good faith, and we should support them with the good pay for these workers. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Claflin.
Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak briefly because public employees go to work every day to serve Minnesotans. They keep us safe. They ensure we have clean air and water. They are responding to the pandemic. And they do many unseen jobs behind the scenes that keep Minnesota working. They are creative problem solvers, and they are dedicated professionals. Passing this contract is a gesture that shows that we respect the work that is being done by our public employees. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Nelson M.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, as has already been stated, these are the people that keep our state running. In this time of pandemic, many of them have stepped up and taken on jobs that weren't part of their, or taken on duties that weren't part of their jobs originally, like the many workers that have gone over and helped answer phones at the unemployment office. With the crush of people getting laid off and furloughed from their jobs, these people have stepped up into jobs that aren't part of their job description and are helping these people who are to get their unemployment so that they can continue feeding their families, paying their mortgages, and all those things that go on. As was also stated, these are contracts that were negotiated in good faith. And they shouldn't be punished now that this pandemic has gone on, because these are the people that work hard and are stepping up and making sure our state continues operating the way it should. And I could talk about, these are the nurses and the doctors at the VA. These are the researchers in our colleges and our universities that are looking for a vaccine for this pandemic that's out here now. So members, it is time that we step up and honor these people to make sure that they get paid what they're worth. They get paid the amount that they negotiated. This is part of what we should be doing as a state. So members, please vote yes on this bill.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Olson.
Madam Speaker, today I am speaking in support of House File 2768. Our state employees provide excellent, essential services for the people of Minnesota. They deserve fair compensation. It's time for the legislature to ratify the contracts that were negotiated in good faith and have been in place for several months. These are employees like Stephanie on the case investigation team at MDH, who's handling isolation and quarantine and following up with our healthcare workers to ensure we have a healthy workforce in our hospitals, clinics, long-term care settings, group homes, and many other places. These are people like Melinda at Deed, who asked her boss if she could do more to help out during the pandemic and is now processing unemployment insurance claims through the call center in St. Paul, and daily gets thanked with tears of appreciation with how grateful people are to talk with her. Or these are people like Joshua, a corrections officer, who in order to keep his family safe has been sleeping in a fish house in his driveway. He has 3 small children at home, ages 4, 2, and 9 months. His only interactions with them have been waving from 6 feet apart. And his daughter doesn't understand why daddy won't hug me. Since April 11th, he has worked 13 overtime shifts on top of his 20 regular scheduled shifts. These are the people that are caring for all of us right now, and we need to do our jobs and take care of them. I will be casting my vote in support of House File 2768, and I ask members for their yes vote as well. Thank you.
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I really appreciate our opportunity to hear this bill and show some respect for our team, for our state workers. And with that, I'd ask for a green vote today.
The member from Isanti, the Minority Leader, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Thank you, Representative Lilly, for bringing this bill forward. This is something we do sometimes every year, sometimes every other year, depending on how the contracts fall and when our approval comes. But our legislative approval is a step in the process. And we are in unique times. Obviously, everybody's functioning a little bit differently. I want to thank each and every one of our state employees without exception. Some of them are working from home remotely on things that have nothing to do with COVID right now, bizarrely like the rest of us are. Some of them are on the front lines. But regardless of what they're working on, I want to thank each and every one of them for the work that they do for our state. And we certainly appreciate them. Normally, when the contracts come up, as a legislative leader particularly, but I think even as a legislator, our email inboxes get filled with emails from state employees saying, please, please, please ratify our contracts. Please don't let this become political. Please, please, please. And without fail, we usually do. I can count on one hand the number of emails I've gotten this year, because I think Minnesota's state employees understand the situation that our state is in. Our stay-at-home order started on March 27th. We're in our 46th day of our stay-at-home order, the 8th week. Many businesses, including restaurants, were closed by executive order on March 17th. So we're on our 56th day and our 9th week. At the end of February, our state was facing a projected $1.5 billion surplus. We found out last week that we now have a $2.5 billion deficit. And right now, 640,000 Minnesotans have filed for unemployment. 640,000 Minnesotans have filed for unemployment. While this pay raise was negotiated, these contracts were negotiated before all of this happened, I think state employees understand that we're all in this together. And had we passed these last session, this wouldn't have even been a discussion. But right now, our state faces a $2.5 billion deficit, and 640,000 Minnesotans are out of work. Think about that for a second. That's between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 Minnesotans is out of work and out of the workforce. So not only do we not have the money, I think it's incredibly insensitive to bring a bill to the House floor giving every state employee a pay raise, not only in the past, but this bill also gives a pay raise on July 1st, another pay raise. What do we tell to the Minnesotans that are out of work? Do we tell them we're all in this together? Does this bill say to Minnesotans that we're all in this together? Once again, I want to thank every state employee for the work that they do. We couldn't do what we do without our state employees. I'm very thankful for you. This has nothing to do with that. This literally is about our world getting turned upside down. And we are all in this together. There is no question. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard that since this started. We're all in this together. It's a common hashtag on social media. We're all in this together. Unfortunately, since we got the bad news of our $2.5 billion surplus, Democrats have brought bills to the floor last week to spend another $200 million of money we don't have. On Saturday, they passed a bill to take money from the TANF fund, which has a structural deficit in it, to give a bonus to welfare recipients. And today, they're bringing a bill to approve state employee contracts with pay raises that unfortunately we cannot afford. And believe me, I wish we could. I wish we weren't in this situation. I was told, I hope that we could just pass these contracts and not politicize them. I actually think that by bringing them to the floor for a vote when we can't afford them is politicizing them. The fact that state employees are not emailing right now saying, hey, I know that, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 Minnesotans is out of work right now, but I really hope you can give me that pay raise that starts on July 1st. State employees are not saying that. And this is not a partisan issue, and this is not politics. But we should not be giving false hope to state employees. What we should be saying is thank you, thank you, thank you for the work that you do for this state. And we are all in this together. My hope is that they can renegotiate these contracts, and I think everybody thinks it's reasonable that they get to keep the raise that they got on July 1st of last year. But this state cannot afford to give an across-the-board pay increase to these state employees that will put Minnesotans on the hook for $1 billion over the next 3 years. That's the kind of money we're talking about, $1 billion over the next 3 years. We do not have the money. So Democrats, please open your eyes to what situation that we're in right now. It's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. But we cannot put our heads in the sand and pretend like this does not exist. We cannot continue on business as usual, pretending like money that's not coming in is going to come in magically somehow. And I, in good conscience, cannot tell the 640,000 Minnesotans that are out of work right now that we're all in this together and vote to give state employees a 2.5% raise starting on July 1st. That is a slap in the face to the 20 or 25% of Minnesotans that are unemployed right now. The highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression. And Democrats bring a bill to give pay raises to state employees. We should be working with the governor to open this state up safely. The governor's emergency powers end in 2 days. Are we ready to help him govern this state and open it up safely? Are we ready? Or are we going to keep bringing bills like this that we can't afford, that give false hope to state employees, and are a slap in the face to every Minnesotan who's out of work right now? We need to choose what our priorities are. And I think by our actions, we need to send a message to Minnesotans that we are all in this together. So state employees, thank you, thank you, thank you for the work that you do for the citizens of this state. And we are all in this together. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the pandemic has shown the importance of a functioning government that cares for people. Minnesotans are keeping our state running, safeguarding our public health, teaching our children, keeping our lights on, our food safe, our water clean, our parks open, and so much more. Minnesotans are coming together to keep our communities safe, and that is why now is the time to invest in them and in a better future for all of us. Minnesota has the resources we need to address this crisis. We just need the will to act. We can't solve every problem, but we should be doing everything we can to provide economic security and resources for as many Minnesotans as we possibly can. We need our resources focused on providing the essential services Minnesotans need, ensuring we're doing everything we can to defeat COVID-19 and avoiding the short-term thinking that damages our state and our economy. During this crisis, we are proud to have passed workers' compensation for frontline responders, grants for child care providers, funding to assist those dealing with food insecurity, funding to assist the homeless and those struggling with housing, and much more. On Saturday in the House, we passed a number of measures that would improve economic security for Minnesotans, including compensation for hourly school employees, assistance for working families on MFIP, $100 million in housing assistance for homeowners, renters, and landlords, temporary wage increases for personal care attendants who care for the most vulnerable Minnesotans, $55 million in emergency loans for small businesses, and $20 million in broadband to help connect students for distance learning, and Minnesotans to the workforce. Today, we have another chance to do something to help Minnesotans, many of whom are on the front line of this crisis. Our state employees provide excellent essential services for the people of Minnesota. They deserve fair compensation. It's time for the legislature to ratify the contracts that were negotiated in good faith and have been in place for several months. Our state employees provide essential services before this crisis, and now they're adjusting and delivering even more. During this economic crisis, we should protect these essential services and the basic economic security of the people we're asking to step in and serve all of us. People like Teresa, who is a nurse at the St. Peter Forensic Mental Health Campus. She says, "My peers and I are working on the front lines during this pandemic crisis without any hazard pay, and now there has been talk about not passing our contract. These contracts were bargained in good faith, and we need the legislature to act on behalf of state workers in Minnesota." People like Charlotte, who is a nurse who works the night shift at the Veterans Home in Fergus Falls and has for 18 years, working hard to make sure our veterans are safe. Charlotte said, "We are the ones who see them, talk to them, and care for them on a daily basis. Please respect us and the care we provide our aging heroes." Staff at St. Cloud State has started the Huskies Food Pantry. They started in January. They've had 845 visits since it opened, but 700 of those visits have been since the pandemic started. They're out there helping students in need while risking their own health. Ashley is the Director of Development for the College of Science and Engineering at Mankato State. She said, "Without our work, more students would be at risk of not continuing their education. They wouldn't have access to emergency funds to cover basic needs such as food and shelter. If fundraisers weren't out doing our work, a generation of students would lose their dreams of a quality and affordable education, and the state of Minnesota would lose an educated workforce that is desperately needed to lead the nation through times such as this." People like Lorraine at Minute, so the state IT department, not what you would think of as being on the front line in the COVID epidemic, but what she is doing at Minute is working with the team at the Department of Veterans Affairs to help make sure that veterans who are applying for state COVID assistance online are actually able to get those services met. People like Ken at the Department of Human Services, who works at the care facility in St. Peter while his wife is in Gilbert, where they moved after he retired. Ken says that his wife's health conditions make her vulnerable to COVID-19. So when I go back to Gilbert to visit her, I plan to stay in our camper to make sure she's safe and we're social distancing. It's hard being away from my wife, but I know that I have something to offer and I want to be of assistance. Social distancing and limited recreation opportunities mean more people are turning to the state's parks and waterways. One park employee in southeastern Minnesota said the parks and trails have been as busy in early May as they typically are in the middle of the summer. Sales for fishing licenses are way up, and state employees are processing these licenses and working in the parks to ensure smooth operations during unusually busy and challenging times. Finally, I think we should all take note that the state workers who are working in this Capitol every day are keeping it clean, making sure that our floor sessions are possible. All over the state, cleaning, sanitation, and maintenance workers are taking care of public infrastructure. I know that I think that we're all proud of these employees. I think that we all believe they deserve our respect and appreciation. But now is not the time to go after those employees that we're counting on and go after the contracts that they have fairly bargained for. Layoffs and wage cuts are not going to help the economy. Nobody is going to be helped by more people making less money. We need to maintain our focus on economic security and critical investments like our state workforce, not an austerity mindset that doesn't help anyone. We owe it to those who keep our state running, even during a pandemic, to follow through on our promises to them and their families. As a state, we've banked savings already. Layoffs have begun. Our state colleges are laying off staff. We have a hiring freeze on non-essential employees, all of which saves money. Additional cuts will devastate families and not save us very much. The numbers are actually very simple. For the remainder of this contract, the one-time wage increase totals about $90 million. But as part of that same good faith negotiation process, they also agreed to increase their health care contributions by $36 million. So the net cost increase of the raise that we have been hearing about is actually $58 million. Now that is a large amount of money by any means, but it is certainly nothing like $1 billion. That is just false information. The cost of the increase that we're talking about is $58 million. And I think it's important for us to remember a few facts. First of all, this is not a contract that the legislature negotiates. We don't decide whether or not we like some parts of it or not. We have already appropriated the money to pay for these contracts. The money is in the budget. We've already appropriated and spent it. We decided on the amount of money last year. The unions and MMB have negotiated the contracts as a result. If in future years we decide that these budgets need to be cut because we can't afford them due to the economic consequences, we will then change the amount of the appropriation, and the unions and MMB will renegotiate the contracts. Our job is to decide how much money is in the pot. Their job is to decide what's in the contract. That's what they have done, and it's our job to take that up. It's been 18 years since the legislature refused to ratify state contracts. That's through the Great Recession. That's through other significant recessions and small recessions. 18 years since we didn't ratify a contract. And when we did it last, it was 2002. The issue was not finances, it was same-sex partner benefits. That was why the 2002 legislature rejected the contract. That tells us not only how far our politics have come on that important issue, it also tells us that year in and year out, the legislature has stood by the public employees that we have assigned to do the work. That's what we need to do again today. Finally, members, I would ask, in a deficit year, in a budget of $50 billion in the general fund, is the first $58 million that we would cut the money that would come directly out of the hands of nurses and epidemiologists and corrections officers? It seems to me that that should not be the first $58 million we pull out of this budget, and that's why we should approve this contract today. We have the resources, the people, and the talent to face this crisis. We just need the will to act. During this economic crisis, we should protect these essential services and the basic economic security of the people we're asking to step in and serve all of us. Now is not the time to turn our backs on them. Now is the time to invest in them and in a better future for all of us. I ask for a yes vote.
The clerk will take the roll. For members on the phone, please state your name and your vote.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, no.
Albright, no. Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Backer, no.
Backer, no. Bonner.
Aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker. Baker, no. Becker Finn.
Becker Finn, yes.
Becker Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, no.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow. Bow, no. Brand. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids. Davids, no. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean.
Dean, aye.
Dean, aye. Damath.
Damath, no.
Damath, no. Detmer. Detmer, no. Driscowski.
Truskowski, no.
Driscowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Edelson, aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Buffalo votes no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green. Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, nay.
Grossel, no. Grunhagen. Grunhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no. Haley.
Haley, no.
Haley, no. Halverson.
Halverson, aye.
Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman.
Heisman, no.
Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, yes.
Her, aye. Hertas.
Hertas, no.
Hertas, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson. Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, no.
Jurgens, no. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Claiborne, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Wattoon.
Katiza Wattoon, aye.
Katiza Wattoon, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, no.
Kosnick, no. Kresha.
Grisha, no.
Kresha, no. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, no.
Lehman, no. Lee.
Lee, aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh.
Lesh, aye.
Lesh, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly. Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard.
Lislegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero. Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, no.
Lewick, no. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Man, aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, no.
Marquardt, no. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklen, nay.
Mecklin, no. Miller. Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Nelson M. Nelson M, aye. Nelson N.
Nelson N, no.
Nelson N, no. New.
New, no.
New, no. Noor.
Nor, aye.
Noor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll, no.
O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, no.
Petersburg, no. Pearson.
Pearson, no.
Pearson, no. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, no.
Poston, no. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Guam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, no. Runbeck.
Runbeck, no.
Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk. Sauk. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott.
Scott, no.
Scott, no. Stevenson. Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski, no. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, No.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
Torkelson, no.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
Erdahl, no.
Erdahl, no. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, no.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Walgamot.
Wolgamott, aye.
Walgamot, aye. Zhang J.
Zhang J, aye.
Zhang J, aye. Zhang T.
Zhang T, aye.
Zhang T, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Sauk.
Sauk, yes.
Sauk, aye.
There being 74 ayes and 60 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.